You know, Thomas, these tables are usually reserved for nominees and their colleagues. Richard Hale smiled when he said it. I'm sure Sarah didn't mean anything by bringing you over here. She didn't bring me, I said. I have an invitation. Of course. He looked at my rented tuxedo. Didn't say anything about it. Didn't need to. People like us come here because we've accomplished something, he said. People like you come because someone invited you. Someone at the end of the table laughed. I said nothing. I've stood inside burning buildings and felt less exposed than I did at that table. Then Hale lifted his glass. You should thank your wife. She may be the only reason anyone in this room even knows your name. 5 minutes later, the entire room would be standing for that name. For 20 years, this recipient submitted detailed field observations without ever asking for recognition. I wasn't listening. I was still thinking about Hale's words. The only reason anyone in this room knows your name. Then the announcer said, Thomas Whitaker. Mike grabbed my arm. Thomas, that's you. I stared at the stage. There's got to be another. Thomas. Mike shook his head. Get up. I still couldn't move. Then I looked at Richard Hale. His drink was halfway to his mouth. He wasn't laughing anymore. Then I looked at my wife. Sarah wasn't surprised. She wasn't even smiling. She was watching me like she'd been waiting years for this exact moment. And suddenly the award wasn't the biggest mystery in the room. My wife was. Why wasn't Sarah surprised? 3 weeks earlier, I thought it was just a normal Tuesday. I'm 63, 31 years a firefighter. Same station, same city. People who worked with me would call me steady, quiet. Not much for talking about the job, that's true. But there's something they don't know. I hate being thanked. Not shy, not modest. I actively avoid it. My old fire chief once asked me to speak at a training day. Tell some stories. I said no. He asked again. I said no again. Sarah told me once, you don't have to disappear every time someone wants to thank you. I told her, if they thank me, they'll start thinking I'm doing it for them. I thought that made me wise. It didn't. It made me good at hiding. Here's the part that matters. I kept a notebook. Started it in my second year on the job. One night stuck with me. A cardiac call. The ambulance crew couldn't find their equipment. Fast enough. Wrong compartment. We got the patient out, but it was close. Too close. Everyone else went home. I stayed and wrote it down. Mike found me there. What are you doing? Writing that the crew lost 94 seconds. Wrong compartment. He laughed. Nobody's going to read that, Thomas. Maybe, I said. I typed it up, sent it in anonymously. About 20 years before that awards dinner it began, and it never stopped. But here's the thing nobody tells you about doing. Something good in secret for 20 years. Most of the time, nothing happens at all. For a long stretch, I sent in report after report. Nothing changed. Mike used to shake his head. You keep sending these things like somebody's actually reading them. Maybe someday they will. You've said that for years. Then I've got a few more in me. I meant it as a joke. Some nights it didn't feel like one. Silence does something to a man. It doesn't stop him. It just stops him expecting anything back. So why keep going? I never had a good answer. I just knew stopping felt worse than being ignored. I've been married to Sarah for 26 years. She's the most exact person I've ever met. She also makes the best scrambled eggs in the world. I never told her those two things feel connected. I still hadn't told her. Not until the end of this story. Early in our marriage, I'd come home after a terrible call. She never asked me to explain it. She'd just put food in front of me and sit there quiet until I could be a person again. Years later, after I lost someone on a call, I told her I was thinking of quitting. You can't save everyone, she said. I know. Then stop measuring yourself by the people you couldn't save. I never quit. After I retired, I kept going back to the station, twice a week, making tea nobody needed made. Sarah never asked why. She just made a thermos before I left. Every time. No questions. I used to think that meant she wasn't paying attention. I was wrong about that too. 26 years of marriage, and I still had no idea how wrong. Sarah is 61. An emergency medicine doctor, still working full days when most of her colleagues have already stopped. She's known for spotting patterns nobody else catches. Her coordinator once joked she doesn't believe in coincidences. What I didn't know is that some of her career had been quietly shaped by something she never told me. 8 years before that awards dinner, a report crossed her desk. Short, anonymous. One line stood out. The first 2 minutes matter more than people realize. She froze. Because I had said almost that exact sentence to her once. Half asleep, barely aware I was talking, she told herself it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was the first thread. She almost mentioned it to me that week. She didn't. Over the next couple of years, more reports crossed her desk. Same careful way of seeing a scene. Same pattern. She started pulling old submissions, lining them up by date. The wording kept repeating. She told herself again, it could be a coincidence. It wasn't. Then came the moment that changed everything. A cardiac patient. The exact scenario from that first report. The new procedure worked. She stood there thinking. Somebody figured this out years ago and never told anyone their name. She went home. Said nothing to me. Sat in the car outside our house for 10 minutes, running through every conversation we'd ever had. Trying to remember if I'd ever said those exact words. I had. She remembered it perfectly. That was the moment. 4 years before the dinner. She became certain. So why didn't she tell me? She has said, since that she spent years wrestling with one question. Am I protecting his privacy, or am I keeping him from something he deserves? She didn't have an answer. So she watched. Quietly. The way she watches everything. One night, long after I'd gone to bed, she opened a nomination form on her laptop. A blank field stared back at her. Nominee's name. She sat there with her hands over the keyboard. She knew exactly what I'd say if I found out, that I hadn't done it to be thanked, that this would only embarrass me. She typed it anyway. Thomas Whitaker. She's told me that was the hardest sentence she's ever written. 2 words long. I had no idea any of this was happening. As far as I knew, I was just a retired guy who liked tea and an old notebook habit nobody cared about. But something was already moving, and I didn't see it coming. 3 weeks before the dinner, an invitation showed up. My name on the envelope. National Emergency Services Awards. Black tie. I figured it was general. Something sent to a bunch of retired staff. I mentioned it to Sarah. At dinner. Half joking. You should go, she said. You want to come? I was invited separately. Work thing. I didn't think twice about it. On the morning of the dinner, I told her I was thinking of skipping it. She went very still. You are going. Not a question. Something in her voice I couldn't place. For one strange second, I actually wondered. Had someone complained about me? I let it go. After 26 years, you learn which stillnesses to leave alone. But I was about to learn I hadn't learned enough. We arrived separately. Her table full of doctors. Mine full of old fire station guys. Richard Hale had already made his opinion of me clear. I tried to forget about him and focus on the dinner. 3 awards were handed out after that. Every recipient had that look. Trying. To seem surprised even though you could tell they already knew. I had none of that. Mike leaned over. You seem tense for a guy who's just here for the free chicken. I don't like these things. You've been weird all week, ever since the invitation came. I haven't been weird. You have. You keep checking your phone like you're waiting for someone to cancel something. He wasn't wrong. Something felt off. Sarah's stillness that morning. The way she'd said you are going like it mattered more than a boring dinner should. I didn't know what I was bracing for. I just knew I was bracing. Then the announcer got to the fourth award. Mike grabbed my arm. I stood up before my brain caught up with my body. The handshake was quick. The award was smaller than I expected, heavier than it looked. "Perhaps you'd like to say a few words," the announcer said. I found Sarah's table without meaning to. She was the only person not clapping, completely still. Her face had a look I'd never seen in 26 years of marriage. Not quite pride, not quite relief. Something held for a very long time, only now being set down. "I need a moment," I said. Somebody laughed kindly. I got the moment. Then I talked for 90 seconds. About the notebook. About wanting to put things somewhere someone might use them. I said I never thought anyone read it. I paused. Something clicked into place. "I think," I said. "Somebody was." I looked at Sarah. She still wasn't smiling. She was looking at me with something I couldn't understand. Not surprise, not even pride. Recognition. And suddenly I knew this award wasn't the only thing she'd been keeping from me. Back at the table, Mike didn't say anything for a while. Just kept looking at the trophy. On the way back to my seat, I passed Richard Hale. He didn't say anything about tables this time. He just nodded once, the way people do when they don't know what else to do with their face. I nodded back. I didn't need anything more than that. "You know what bothers me?" Mike finally said. "What? I sat next to you for 30 years, and I never once figured out you were the one writing those things. Nobody was supposed to." "Yeah," he shook his head. "That's exactly the problem." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. We said our goodbyes not long after. People kept stopping me on the way out, shaking my hand, saying things like we had no idea, I didn't know, what to say back to any of them. Sarah drove us home. She always drives when she can tell I need both hands free to think. 15 minutes of silence. Streetlights sliding past the window. The award box sitting in my lap like it might slide off if I let go. Finally, I asked, "How long have you known?" 4 years since I was sure, she said. 8 years since I first suspected. 8 years. I said it like the number was too big to fit in the car. And the nomination? 6 months ago. "You didn't tell me?" She was quiet, eyes on the road. "I needed to know if you'd keep writing them, even believing nobody was reading a single one. And you did, for 4 more years after I already knew." That told her something. "But what?" "That you weren't doing it to be seen," she said. "You were doing it because it needed doing. Those are 2 different things." I sat with that. Then I asked the question I'd been circling since the parking lot. "Why didn't you just tell me? Any time in the last 8 years?" She didn't answer right. "Away. Because I wasn't sure if telling you would help you or take something away from you. You've spent your whole life avoiding thanks like it might spoil something. I didn't know if an award would feel like a gift or a punishment. So I just watched for a long time." "And what did you decide?" "That it was time somebody said your name out loud, whether you wanted them to or not." 20 years is long enough to be invisible on purpose. We got home, sat at the kitchen table, the award between us, like a third person in the conversation. "Picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. 20 years, I said. 20 years, she said. "You could have told me 4 years ago." "Yes, why didn't you?" She looked at me the way she looks at a diagnosis she's finally, completely understood. "You spent 20 years sending in notes you thought nobody read. I spent 4 years knowing they were yours. I nominated you because somebody needed to say your name out loud, in a room full of people, whether you liked it or not." She paused. "It took me 4 years to understand something. The only reason any of it meant something is that you would have kept doing it either way. Award or no award. Somebody watching or nobody watching at all. I sat there a long time holding that small, heavy award. For 20 years, I believed I was invisible. That's what let me keep doing the work without needing anyone to see it. I was wrong. My wife had been watching the entire time. 8 years of noticing. 4 years of knowing. I thought I was invisible. I wasn't. She'd been seeing me the whole time. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only thing that felt true enough to match it. Your scrambled eggs are the best thing you've ever made. Sarah looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You've been married to me for 26 years? And that's what you decided to finally say? I was waiting for the right award. She laughed. Really laughed. The kind she doesn't do often. For a second, the whole heavy night got lighter. The way it needed to. Later, after she'd gone up to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the award in front of me. I thought about the notebook, still sitting in the drawer upstairs. I thought about how many times I'd typed up a report and hit send without expecting anything back. I already knew I wasn't going to stop. The award didn't change why I did it. It never was about that. Sarah understood that about me before I understood it myself. If there's someone in your life who's been quietly doing something good for a long time, not because anyone was watching, say it out loud while you still can. The award can wait. That can't. Maybe it's time someone finally said their name out loud. If someone came to mind while listening to this story, tell me about them in the comments. And if you believe quiet acts of loyalty deserve to be remembered, subscribe for more stories like this.